Hi everyone, today I'm with Jason from my ISFP journey, and we're here to talk about how the introverted functions are all like boxes. And so would you like to describe that more for us?
Sure. The concept that I think of when I think of that is fleshed out a little bit in objective personality. So I just want to say that because that's kind of where I get the concept from. But my understanding of it and my sense of it from my own experiences is that all of the introverted functions, in a sense, create a little box of what they are comfortable with, what they're willing to accept, what they're willing to consider to be part of their life, their experience, their reality. And in general, the introverted functions are narrowing down functions that once something is in that box, it's acceptable, it's comfortable, and it's allowed to be a regular part of that person's environment. But as a general rule, the introverted functions are trying to eliminate things. They're trying to push things out or not allow things in, I guess is a better way. So you can almost think of the introverted functions as like a fortress. And once they allow something in, it's there, it's safe, it's protected, and it can stay. But generally speaking, they're trying to keep things out. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense, Jason. And so they're looking to have as little contamination from the outside world or influence from the outside world as possible. The FI user does not want people influencing their emotions before they decided what they are yet.
Exactly. As a person with high introverted feeling, not only do I consider myself to be responsible for my own feelings and emotions, but I am the one who sets my own values. I look more to myself to decide what matters to me, what do I value, what do I care about, what is important. What I am generally speaking not doing is going out to the world of other people and asking them, well, what do you value? What matters to you? Now, I may ask those questions in an attempt to get to know somebody, but I am trying to not allow that person's feelings, values, likes, emotions to get inside my FI box and influence mine, because I look to myself for those things, not to other people.
Introverted functions want to figure things out for themselves. So FI wants to know what feels right for them. The introverted functions are looking for purity. And so FI wants to know, what do I value apart from what everyone else values? I want to figure that out in a vacuum. Yeah. I don't want Sally influencing that. I want to know that it's authentic to me, that it resonates with me, that it comes from me, that right. What I value. Because introverted functions are the ultimate authority to what they let in. They don't want the outer world to dictate what they let in.
Right. And I think that we can understand that better if we contrast that with the extroverted version of the same function. So if you look at, let's just take as an example, extroverted sensing versus introverted sensing. Someone with introverted sensing may create a very structured and specific physical world. Maybe it's their home, maybe it's their bedroom, whatever, but they have this one place where everything is exactly as they want it. And the thought of it being affected or changed by another human being would be largely unacceptable, right? Extroverted sensing, on the other hand, is always perusing the world, always looking around at all of the possible physical reality experiences or things that are out there, all the sight, all the sound, all the whatevers, and willing to take in more and more and more and more and more. In fact, it's really, I mean, from my experience, extroverted sensing is it's insatiable. You can't ever give extroverted sensing enough things to look at, sounds to hear, smells to smell, experiences to experience. It's never satisfied. It always wants more. And it's not trying to narrow down. Whereas for me, my extroverted sensing is always going out there saying, let's take in more and more and more and more sights, sounds, experiences, whatever. But then my introverted feeling is saying, okay, but let's pick through those very specifically and say, which ones do we actually like? Which ones do we actually value? Those allowed in for re-experiencing later. But if it's not allowed in, if I taste a cookie and the cookie does not taste good to me, then my FI is like, nope, throw that one outside the box, and it's never allowed inside the box again. It can never be tried again. And I find myself, even with simple things like that with food, saying, oh, I don't like that. And then having to say, yeah, but I haven't tried that in 25 years. Maybe if I tried it again, I might be willing to say, oh, I like that. Or the same thing with an idea. I might say, well, I considered that idea 30 years ago and I ruled it out. Okay, well, maybe it's time to consider again, because I'm not always out there extroverted intuition taking in new ideas, but rather I'm in my introverted intuition box saying, no, these are my few little ideas, and they fit into my FI box too because I like them or they make me feel good or I value them. And then I just shut the whole world of ideas out and say, okay, I'm done.
Absolutely. I think it's a wonderful point to contrast them with the extroverted functions. And so on the contrast, extroverted feeling likes to get feedback from the outer world. In fact, the more feedback, the better, because then you're making better calibrated value judgments and decisions. And so because all the extroverted functions are externally dependent or they're externally receptive, they don't want to figure things out in a box. Extroverted functions are more open world.
Right.
And so they want to be able to go everywhere, try everything, see everything, have the biggest palette, or as OPS puts it, spectrum of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that spectrum word really, it has a lot of value in the discussion, because I think, like, going back to extroverted sensing can look at the physical world on a spectrum, and it can really instantly take in a new physical experience or see a thing or, taste a cookie and know exactly where that belongs on the spectrum of the physical world. Whereas introverted sensing, I think, is more unaware of that spectrum and tends to stick with what it knows. I can think of one introverted sensing person who drove the same type of car over and over and over and over because that's what it knew, as opposed to an extroverted sensing person who might be like, ooh, a new car. I want a new car and a new color and, this new type of car or whatever, because they just want to different. And I think I really can't get my brain around the concept of understanding values or emotions on the spectrum. Like, that to me doesn't even, I don't even know what that looks like. I don't even know how to explain that or describe that, because to me, the thing that I value is of utmost importance in and of itself, without any consideration for how anybody else values it or what anyone else thinks. And oftentimes I find that I'm largely unaware of what is valued in the world. I'm not aware of what society values. I don't know. And quite honestly, I don't care, because values in my mind are very personal.
And so with extroverted functions, they get a lot of joy from increasing their spectrum. So the wider they can make their spectrum, the more fulfilling that is. For extroverted sensing, the wider the amount of experiences you can have that are pleasant. For NE, the extroverted intuition, the wider amount of ideas that are interesting that you can entertain, the better.
Yeah.
And so increasing the range or increasing the variety or increasing the gathering, it makes it even more pleasurable for them.
I think sometimes the gathering is the excitement, or is the, I see that in my own home, where my wife is an INFP. So she has introverted intuition very high. And me being an ISFP, I have introverted intuition, and it's a little on the lower side. And I see how she is always exploring the metaphysical, always exploring the possible, always exploring the ideas that may exist behind the physical reality. And no amount of new ideas too much for her. Regardless of how many new ideas she's taking in, she's always on the hunt for more metaphysical understanding, more metaphysical concepts, more understanding the invisible that exists behind the visible. Whereas for me, first of all, I'm not quite as interested. I'm not always pursuing the invisible behind the physical, because being a sensor, favoring sensing over intuition, I am more concerned with the physical and the real, the things that not that invisible is not real, but I mean things that I can touch, taste, smell, so on and so forth. And then whenever I do explore the metaphysical, With introverted intuition, having my little introverted intuition box, I want to narrow down very quickly and say, okay, there's an idea that I'm willing to accept about the metaphysical or the invisible world. I'll put that in my little box and now I'm done. I don't need to explore anymore. I'm not in.
So very well put. And you can see here that the introverted functions, they want to be able to figure out what parts of the world click with them. And then they want to keep that in a box and kind of store it away. Like they don't want an infinite amount of information or things to consider in their decision-making process. They almost want to distill it down to a few things. And then they almost go over and over on those few things that they have in their worlds. And so thank you, Jason, for coming out and discussing this wonderful concept of the introverted functions and how they are boxy in their own sense.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone, for watching. I'll see you all in the next episode.